it's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. He was off for a couple of days, but he's back. And looking rested and refreshed. Maybe? I don't know. Sam Yarnell is here. He was off for the last couple of days. Thanks to everybody who jumped on the show and helped us fill the space with Sam being off for a couple of days. You weren't Wally pipped. That's the good news. You still got your role here. You're safe. So let's start out in the NFL. Do a few NFL segments today on the show. And let's start out in the NFL with, I want to talk about some quarterbacks and some weekend leftovers since we didn't get to do them with you on Tuesday's edition of the show. And just talk about, sort of where we are. It's week 3, and ironically enough, we've also got 3 quarterbacks that won't be taking part in games this weekend, with Carson Wentz starting for J.J. McCarthy, with Mac Jones. If Mac Brown was starting, that would be a story. With Mac Jones starting for Brock Purdy. And who did I leave out? I left one out. Let me see here. Let me get my list. Oh, Jake Browning, of course. Starting for Joe Burrow, who's going to be out for at least the next 12 weeks. See, Sam, you disappear for a few days, and there's all sorts of news.
No kidding. And the one that we didn't even mention because it hasn't been confirmed yet, but look out, Jason. We may see a Marcus Mariota game this weekend out in your neck of the woods out in Vegas. I've heard that Jaden Daniels may take this week off. He's not looking so hot after, I guess he took a hit on Sunday. But, this is that part of the season, right? I feel like we talk about it every year where we get to, maybe it's not always week 3. Maybe it's sometimes like week 4 or 5. Maybe this is a touch early. But this is when everything kind of starts to hit the fan, right? Everything, all the prep that we did for months and months and, useless. shows and shows and shows on this very network where you're watching this very show. We talked about all these things that could happen, and then all of this happens. And, the Bengals go from being this powerhouse offense, and we don't know what they're going to do about the defense, but it might not matter because maybe they'll be the first team to score 50 a game, to now they don't have Joe Burrow, and there has to be a conversation that we seriously discuss about, well, Joe Burrow's great, but Joe Burrow's great when he's healthy, and after this stretch, there's going to be a lot more unhealthy time with relation to the healthy time, and it's starting to become a career narrative for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and I will give you some credit. You talked up Mac Jones as being able to carry the Niners enough to get wins, and kudos to you. He had a hell of a game in his first game for the Niners as they were able to get the win. By the way, I was 1-3 in Page's picks, which we have not talked about on the show.
That means you clearly didn't talk about your boy going 4-0.
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect.
Well, you weren't
that's
here,
why they
so
call
I
me
wouldn't
the
talk
Prince
about
of
it.
Picks,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That's how I earned the moniker. I mean, they don't just give those out for free. Like I was giving winners out for free last week. On the Mac Jones thing, though, and I think this is very interesting, and it's honestly something I didn't even take into consideration really when I was thinking about breaking that Saints game down, because the Saints are just so bad, and that's a different story for a different day.
Bad, but they've basically had the ball in their hands with a chance to win 2 games in a row, so they can't be that bad.
Well, have they won either of those games?
No, but I mean the margin. But again, the margin of victory,
that is not good.
The margin we know is we go through this every year. There's always a team we go through it every year. There's 1 or 2 teams that lose these close games. And then the next year they manage to win those close games. The Cincinnati Bengals are the perfect example. The first 2 weeks of the season, those were games last year they were losing. This year they win them. Anyway, make your point.
The Kansas City Chiefs, who we'll talk about in the next segment, are a perfect example of the inverse.
Yes.
They were winning all those games last year. Now they're losing all those games this year. You're exactly right, and I agree with you completely. What I will say on the 49ers, though, real quick, with regard to the Kyle Shanahan, Mac Jones relationship, people forget this. Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones until the Patriots, I think, moved a spot in front of him to go and draft him. Bill Belichick did. Kyle Shanahan knows what Mac Jones can do. He showed it to you in that Saints game. He showed you the quarterback that Mac Jones can be in a Kyle Shanahan offense. And I sent it out in a tweet on Sunday, Jason. I think Brock Purdy should be starting to get really nervous about his standing because I know he was just given all this money, but guess what? Mac Jones just came in on a nothing deal and walked the walk and is talking the talk through a week. I know it was the Saints. I'm curious to see what they do in a divisional game against the Cardinals, but man, I might be leading the Mac militia.
Hey, real quick, we know Kevin O'Connell's an offensive genius. But how much of an offensive genius do you have to be to win with Carson Wentz as your starting quarterback this week? Just saying. What, now you're hot? Wait a minute. When Carson Wentz signed this deal, and I wanted to mention it on the show, you basically took a dump on me about the fact that I wanted to talk about Carson Wentz going to the Vikings because you're like, it's Carson Wentz. What is Carson Wentz? And now you're going to give me the complete opposite argument.
I didn't think J.J. McCarthy would be this bad when I said that. I really didn't. And then he came out and threw 8 quarters of football. He's been bad in 7 of them. He legitimately had 1 good quarter of football so far. So now they're coming up with this whole phantom IL stint. They're going full baseball up in Minnesota. Yes, I actually do believe in Carson Wentz. Only because I don't think it can get much worse than it has been. Wow. J.J. McCarthy could not have, and I know he's great for that team, and he's a great leader, and he's a great, off the field sideline presence and huddle presence to have. But man, is he not cut out to be an NFL quarterback.
It's too early to say that. It's just a couple of games. I can't go there yet. Go look at some of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of this game and go look at their first seasons, let alone first couple of games. Let's calm down. Last thing on this. Aaron Rodgers. What did I say during the offseason about Aaron Rodgers? Don't go and sign with a team. Sit around and wait. There's going to be an opportunity. Somebody's going to get hurt. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals? I know their offensive line isn't the greatest. And I know that protecting him would be a problem. It's going to be a problem even in Pittsburgh, as we saw in week 1 against the Jets, and as we saw in week 2. But if Aaron Rodgers had just sat back and waited, an opportunity would have presented itself. And that opportunity would have been the Cincinnati Bengals. And he would have been throwing to, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and everybody else on that team, instead of what he's throwing to on the Steelers.
Maybe you should ask for a trade.
That would be a great story. Coming up in 10 minutes, Cal Raleigh doing dumper things. We'll get into that. And yet his MVP odds just keep falling. You can't make it up. That's coming up in 10 minutes. But if it's a Wednesday on SportsWrap, week 3 in the NFL right around the corner, it can only mean one thing. It's time for the SportsWrap Panic Meter, Week 3 NFL edition. Sam Yarnell. And for your consideration, 2 teams today that we're going to put under the Panic Meter spotlight, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs. That was an extra second of pause. The Kansas City Chiefs on the Panic Meter, Sam Yarnell. On a scale of 1 to 5, where are you on the Kansas City Chiefs?
If I have to use whole numbers, I guess I'll go with a 3.
Thank you.
The real, more precise number would probably be a 2.75. I'm just beyond halfway panicked about the Kansas City Chiefs. And here's why. And I know everyone's talking about, it's 2 weeks. I just got back from being in the heart of the Kansas City fan base, and it's like, it's just 2 weeks. What? Well, a couple of things. First of all, in the Mahomes era, the Chiefs have never started the season 0-2, ever, since Patrick Mahomes started being their quarterback. So this is the first time. Second of all, if you're going to tell me that Patrick Mahomes looks the same as he has in the past, you're just not watching the right football games. I'm sorry, maybe you're watching reruns. Third of all, the numbers game, right? And this is from John Ewing on Twitter, does great football research, does great betting research. In 5 seasons since the NFL expanded to the 14-team playoff, 12% of teams that start 0-2 have made the playoffs. 5 out of 41 teams that have started 0-2 over these 5 seasons have made the playoffs. So there are 10 teams that have started 0-2. Numbers-wise, 1 of these 10 teams is going to make the playoffs. Jets, Dolphins, no. Browns, no. Texans, Titans, Chiefs, Giants, Bears, Saints, Panthers. To me, the Chiefs now come down to really, it's either them or the Texans that's going to make the playoffs, which is why I'm at a 3. Because if Mahomes keeps playing as badly as he is, and Travis Kelce keeps, every week it's a new bad thing he's doing to the team, right? Week 1, he takes out the team's wide receiver 1. Week 2, ball bounces off his hands and into a defender's arms for a score that would have given them the lead, but instead gave the other team the ball.
And then he gives a look, and then he gives this crazy look like, I don't understand.
I am a 3 on the Chiefs. I think it is time to start sweating in Kansas City. The button, the big red panic button isn't on the table yet,
right.
But I'm warm if I'm in Kansas City right now.
I'll put the number at 3 as well. I hate to agree with you, but I'll put it at 3 as well. The reason I'm not at a 5, I take my cues from Vegas sometimes. Have you seen the number on the Chiefs to make the playoffs? It's still minus 194 for the Kansas City Chiefs to make the playoffs. That is, and that's, it's one of the higher numbers up there. It's actually 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. It's the 9th highest number on the board for the Kansas City Chiefs to make the playoffs, is minus 194. So I'm not sweating it yet, but here's the reality. I don't know what I've seen in the first 2 weeks that's going to change. The receiving core is still going to suck, as long as Worthy is out until Rice comes back. Will their defense keep them in games? Absolutely. And I can't. I hate to agree with you on this, because we all love Patrick Mahomes. By the way, happy 30th birthday to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like the same Patrick Mahomes from a body language standpoint, from a physical standpoint. I don't know what's going to change here for this team that allows it to go. You could have sloppiness and this and that. I just wonder from a player personnel standpoint if this team is as good as it needs to be in order to be able to win enough games to make the playoffs. I'll put it at a 3 for now. The Chicago Bears, Sam Yarnell. On a scale of 1 to 5, where is the panic meter on the Chicago Bears?
5, but in reality, it's like a 12 or a 13 on a scale of 1 to 5. Youch. That was tough on Sunday. I'm worried about the Ben Johnson experience, and I think that, as much as we, the football analysis community, may have thought in this offseason, what are these Lions going to do, man? It's Dan Campbell, but he's not going to have Ben Johnson. He's not going to have Aaron Glenn. Well, look at what those two guys have done. I think those two guys might have relied a little bit more on Dan Campbell than Dan Campbell relied on those two guys. You think? People forget Dan Campbell's an offensive coach. The Lions have clearly recovered from that just fine, recovered from those 2 losses. And I'll just put it to you plainly and simply, watching that team and reading the stories that come out about it, it seems like Ben Johnson has lost the locker room 3 weeks into the season, which is never good in your first year of one of the highest paid head coaching deals in the NFL.
There are certain jobs in this league, there are certain places in this league that are just black holes. That if you go there, your career is over in one way or another. The Jets would be one. Cleveland would be another. We might have to start considering the idea that Chicago is one of those career black holes. And you never would have thought that with the success this franchise has had. But it's been a long time since anybody's been able to go to Chicago and be successful. you might have to start thinking of Chicago as one of those career black holes. I'll also put it at a 5 on the Bears. With what I've seen through the first 2 weeks, they had a whole training camp to get on the same page with Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, this offense, and the fact of the matter is it just isn't coming together yet. And eventually, with them have just signing Ben Johnson, eventually the finger's going to start getting pointed at Caleb Williams. Fairly or unfairly, whether we think it's a Ben Johnson problem or not, they're going to say, hey, you had 2 different coaches, Caleb Williams. You couldn't make it work with either, and perhaps you're the problem, not the coaches necessarily being the problem. And I think Ben Johnson's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt over Caleb Williams. I'll put it at a 5. On the Chicago Bears. By the way, you didn't mention your point about the shirts. Did you mention the shirts?
I didn't. You're right, and I thought about that after I had been so long-winded on why the Chiefs
you talked about everything.
Are having their demise this year.
You basically read me War and Peace. You basically read me War and Peace, and you didn't talk about the Chiefs shirts.
It was. I mean, it's not. The thing is, it's just so quintessentially Chiefs, right? To stand up for the guy who broke the law and is now serving a punishment that is actually fairly light because of his status.
That's the SportsWrap panic meter. Where do you have it? We're coming back. And SportsWrap continues on a Wednesday. Tom Brady. I think I have, and look, this might be me reading into the Tom Brady stuff too much. I think I have an explanation for what we're seeing right now with Tom Brady. In case you didn't see it, he was in the coach's box for the Raiders on Monday night. Didn't help much. They could have used him on the field, maybe. It's to use your word, quintessentially Raiders. Sam Yarnell. We'll get to that coming up in 10 minutes. But first, some baseball talk. By the way, thanks to our man David Ardsma for doing double duty and hanging out with us yesterday on the show. He'll still be on the show tomorrow with us to talk baseball. He sat in for a couple of segments yesterday. And on Tuesday night, Cal Raleigh continuing to make history. 56 home runs, tying the franchise record set by one Ken Griffey Jr., passing Mickey Mantle, and just continuing to do things from a switch hitting standpoint that we've never seen before, and continuing to do things that we've never seen a catcher do before, Sam Yarnell. But I keep asking this question. When will it ever be enough? It's not enough for the sports books, who continue to take a dump on the big dumper. That's two dump references on the show today, by the way, which means I am over the limit. We're not allowed to talk about dumps anymore on the show today. But Cal Raleigh with 56 home runs, leading, his team may win the division now, and he still isn't getting the love for MVP, at least as far as the voters go for the MVP, or at least as far as it goes for the sports books. Aaron Judge minus 900 right now. Cal Raleigh is plus 480. Your American League MVP voting, and really the only race other than National League Rookie of the Year that's still close, Sam.
Yeah, a patently ridiculous one. But you asked a question in the break.
Yeah.
About if Cal Raleigh can hit 60 home runs this year and not win the MVP, and I think that's very interesting because the answer is yes. And the answer is he probably will and probably won't. He probably will hit 60 home runs, and he probably won't win the MVP. I can actually assuredly say that he won't win the MVP, which is patently ridiculous and quintessentially, as you said, baseball. To favor the East Coast New Yorker simply because his jersey's got pinstripes on it and his team won a bunch of World Series back when there were 12 teams in Major League Baseball.
I'm drinking some, by the way,
let's not get it.
By the way, I'm drinking some Gatorade. It could, if it were you, it'd be Haterade.
But that is the reason that Aaron Judge is going to be given this MVP, despite missing copious time, despite hitting at the Mendoza line for 2 months of the season, and everybody's saying
he still leads the league in hitting.
Right, and everybody's saying that this is a batting average season, and it's just so impressive that he can do all these things. Well, he can do all these things except lead his team to a division title, which Cal Raleigh is actually doing. So again, the value in the MVP award needs to be changed. We've got to rename this award if we're just going to keep giving it to Aaron Judge, because it's not about value anymore. It's about who's going to be the most famous player in the biggest market, right? And Aaron Judge is going to win the MVP award this year because he plays in New York and Cal Raleigh plays in Seattle. And it's as simple as that.
By the way, if the Yankees were in the AL West, they'd be leading the division right now. They have a better record than the Seattle Mariners. Let's just say they have a better record than the Seattle Mariners. And now what you have is a balanced schedule. I think it's fair to mention if we're going to talk about the fact that Seattle's going to win the division, which, I mean, they're a game up on the Astros, who have obviously been having their own issues that we'll get to in a second here. We'll get to that in a second.
They're going to win that division.
You never know. It's still only a game. I mean, it's one game. To definitively say the Astros are that the Mariners are going to win the division, I mean, I don't know if I'd go that crazy. Anyway,
the only shred of hope that the Astros have is out for the season.
Yeah, we'll get to that coming up in a couple minutes. By the way, Mariners minus 195 right now to win the AL West. The Astros at plus 135. If you want the Yankees, I'm not even going to give the number.
60. Gosh, man, it is.
What?
Different story for a different day, but it is criminal that there is a 60-cent price that you have to pay to bet that division right now.
Shohei Ohtani last night hitting home run number 50 while throwing 5 no-hit innings for the Los Angeles Dodgers. There goes home run number 50 into the night as we sit here and do the show. And again, we're talking about Cal Raleigh and the great things he's done. Aaron Judge is going to win MVP. And yet again, we're not talking enough about what Ohtani continues to do in this season where he's getting the opportunity to pitch and hit in the same season.
It's ridiculous, man. It's so fun to watch. I mean, to the West Coast point I was making at the beginning of the segment, I hate that he plays on the West Coast because I got to stay up until all hours of the night, as most people do, to watch his games. Like even you, right? You got to stay up until what? And 11 o'clock to the end of the game?
10 o'clock.
11:30? So yeah, man, Shohei Ohtani is so special. He is such a gift. And I think it's funny because and I know that you're not one of these because you are a respected ball knower, to an extent, but there are people in the New York market who are saying, well, if baseball just had one MVP and we didn't give it to an AL and we should just give it to Judge this year, right? No one's been more valuable. Judge would beat out Ohtani.
No. I'm so glad you bring this up.
They tried to make that argument last year too, and I understand that you're not. I understand that, and I appreciate that. I think that that's one of your best qualities as a Yankee fan. But there are those Yankee fans out there, and they're crazy. Shohei Ohtani rocks.
By the way, I'm so glad you bring this up because I was actually thinking about this topic today, that if we had one MVP, it would absolutely be Shohei Ohtani. And I don't know, frankly, why we don't just have one MVP. I mean, look, every other sport does it that way. There isn't a Western Conference MVP and an Eastern Conference MVP. I don't know why baseball does it this way. In the age of interleague, where you're playing everybody and everybody's playing against everybody, I don't know why. I don't know why we need this. I don't know why we need to have 2 different MVPs. I wonder if baseball comes around to that idea one day, or if that's just a bridge too far to cross for the traditionalists, and Bob Costas will lose his mind and go on CNN for the umpteenth time to tell us all how stupid we are and how smart he is. But it's just,
whoa,
I'm so much smarter than you.
The traditionalist brain inside me thought to myself, well, it was obviously created, right, to differentiate the league with the designated hitter and the league without it, to give the designated hitter a potential to win an MVP. Now that's not a problem anymore.
There's no logical reason for it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's of a bygone era. All right. Speaking of bygone eras, we got to talk about Tom Brady next. Coming up in 10 minutes, a streak has been broken in the WNBA. Talk about that. Talk about some of the playoff games from last night. The league is breathing a huge sigh of relief. I'll explain. But Sam Yarnell, back to the NFL. So the NFL and its powers that be said Tuesday in a statement that Tom Brady, a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders and a broadcaster for Fox, because he is the sun and the moon, is prohibited from going to a team facility for practices or production meetings, but that the former quarterback is allowed to sit in the coach's booth, according to the league. I have an interesting take on this, and this might be going like fifth level in terms of depth. I think Tom Brady still doesn't know what he wants to. I think he's the guy who just retired a few years ago and doesn't know what the hell he wants to do with his life. And I don't know if he's figured out where he gets joy. I don't know if he's figured out where he gets happiness, what satisfies the competitive urges that he may have. I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. Tom Brady wants to be a broadcaster. Tom Brady wants to be an entrepreneur. Tom Brady wants to be a minority owner of the Raiders, but still sit in the coach's box. I don't think Tom Brady knows what the hell Tom Brady wants. That's the truth. And by the way, I'm not saying that as a pejorative. I'm not saying that to down him. I'm, going to be 48 years old 3 days from now. If you want to get me a birthday gift, I'll appreciate it. And some days I don't even know what I want to do. And Tom Brady's not much old. He's about the same age as me, I think. And going through, I think, those same sorts of things. Look, as it relates to the NFL side of this, though, Sam, I do not think it is a good look to have your marquee broadcaster, your number one analyst on Fox, also sitting in coaches' boxes, doing God knows what. Didn't obviously help the Raiders all that much. If you watched them on Monday night, they couldn't do anything offensively against that Chargers defense. By the way, which I said yesterday on the show, Sam, the Chargers, probably the team to beat in that division. It ain't the Broncos, based on what I've seen through the first 2 weeks of the season. No. It's the Chargers. But as it relates to Brady, I don't think it's a great look for the league to have him doing both the Fox stuff and this.
Well, real quick on the Chargers thing, because I almost mentioned this when we were talking about the Chiefs' odds to make the playoffs earlier. Yeah. The Chargers are even money to win that division now. They are the favorite to win that division by far. The Chiefs are plus 250. The Chargers are even money. So something's going on Fifth Avenue, man. I don't know what it is, but the league offices have been kind of going off. They've had a real start to their week. I can't put my finger on it, but something's up. Because between the whole Tom Brady thing, which like objectively should not be allowed, I think everybody can agree that it shouldn't be allowed for him to be in the coach's box when a team is playing a team who the week prior Tom Brady was covering and interacting with on a broadcaster level. So, and then on top of this whole Tom Brady calamity going on, you had on Sunday night, Jason, everybody freaking out over all the videos and screenshots that were being posted of the tush push and how far offsides the Eagles are lining up. And then the NFL DCMAs every single one of those pictures and videos that are out there on the internet. I don't understand what the league office is trying to pull or manipulate us, the consumers, into thinking or believing right now, but they're doing a real bad job of it compared to what they normally do. Because usually they can control these kinds of things to an extent, but they're being a little too gaudy with all the things that they're letting happen in the NFL space off the field right now. I don't understand what the league office's thinking is, but I don't know. My spidey sense is tingling in that either something major is about to happen or we're about to get some change in terms of the structure of the league office. I don't know, but all of this happening week 2 of the season doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say some major change is coming. There's definitely a sense, though, that the league's mindset on certain things, whether it was the spitting incident with Jalen Carter and setting the precedent that, okay, this is one game. The statement being made on the Brady stuff, the changes with NFL media and linking arms with ESPN. There are a lot of different things that are sort of shifting in the landscape around this league right now. But here's the better question that I want to sort of finish this segment with. Is Tom Brady going to stay in broadcasting? I know he's making a lot of money to do it. And sometimes, money can cure a lot of the ills. I'd love to know what that's like, by the way. I'd love to know. Can I just hold on, I want to know what it's like to have that stupid money. Sorry. Quick aside. The Brady stuff, I think that I just don't know if he's long for staying in the broadcast booth. And I think at some point the league might go to him. They're not going to do it mid-season. They might go to him in the offseason and say, look, you got to choose one or the other. If you want to be an owner and an active owner or a coach or whatever it is you want to be within the Raiders organization to help fix that mess, if I were the league, I'd push him out of the broadcast booth and say, go fix the Raiders. Go fix what was one of the marquee franchises. If I were Roger Goodell, I'd get in Tom Brady's ear and say, you know what, this broadcasting thing, it's not for you. It's not for you. Let's leave it to the good ones. Because Tom's not that good at it. That's the fact of the matter. He's not that good. He should not be the number one analyst on broadcasts for Fox. There are guys that are better suited to do it. I'd put Dan Orlovsky in there ahead of him, to be brutally honest. That's how good I think Dan is. But I wonder if the league tries to push him one way or the other. We're coming back. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. We have an MLS reference to get to in Odds and Ends. I know. I don't know if anybody's watching the MLS on Apple TV. They're still watching it in person, though. I have also a comparison to make on the MLS and another league that I think is rather appropriate. Sam Yarnell, the win streak ends at 17 for the Las Vegas Aces. It's still amazing to even think that team won 17 in a row when you consider that through more than the first half of the season, they basically meandered through said season, Sam. But the Las Vegas Aces, a loser last night in Seattle against the Storm in a tightly contested game. Seattle able to force a game 3 back in Sin City with a win last night. And, I mean, it is remarkable. And I haven't looked at the latest WNBA championship odds, but I'm going to. After just sort of wandering through the desert all year, literally and figuratively, the Aces have the second best odds now to win the WNBA championship at plus 350. The Lynx still your top pick at minus 115 right now. But, man, Las Vegas has certainly put it together. I do think they'll win game 3 in this series and advance to the next round. But Seattle gets a win last night.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how much those numbers moved. But going into last night's game, the Lynx were near even money to win the title, and the Aces were plus 250. So I guess the book is saying that that extra game and having to play that extra game is really going to hurt Las Vegas. I don't know about all that. I think the Vegas Aces, man, and this may be my baseball brain talking too much, but it seems like you got to ride the hot hand, and not to say the Lynx haven't been good, but all that time without Fee and the hot run that the Aces have been on. I don't mind betting the Aces right now, especially at that 3-1 tag. Yeah, last night's game was weird. I don't know. It didn't really cause me any concern.
I love Skylar Diggins.
Seattle.
I love Skylar Diggins. I could watch Skylar Diggins play basketball all day.
She was great. I don't think that Seattle really will have a chance on Thursday night, but stranger things have happened, right? It's been a while since Las Vegas lost. Who knows if they forgot how to lose, which is a very real thing in sports we talk about all the time. Yeah, I think that I'm really selling myself on this Aces team winning the championship. I might just go bet it at 3-1.
Aneka Agumake, 24-10 last night as well for Seattle, who gets the win. By the way, Aces lose despite shooting 50% from the field in the game. It doesn't happen often in a playoff game. You shoot 60% and wind up losing the game. 20 of 29 from the free throw line, though, may have been costly for them in that game. Hats off to Indiana, playing without Caitlin Clark, as we have chronicled here late in the season. They get a win. We had Robin Lundberg on the show yesterday from SI and Sirius XM Radio, does a great job on women's basketball. And he thought they had a puncher's chance last night, but in his heart of hearts, I don't think he thought Indiana would be able to force a game 3 in this series. They do. They'll have to go back to Atlanta to try and get a win there. But hats off to the Fever last night. And Caitlin Clark sitting on the sidelines. We should do an over-under, or we could make it a drinking game on how many times ESPN shows Caitlin Clark on the sidelines during these games. Like, I mean, I get it. I know she's your cash cow, and I know that, she's what drives ratings, for the WNBA, and you're going to see that number go down. I don't think it's going to be off a cliff, but you're going to see the number go down. The one thing I will say about the WNBA, though, fans are still going to these playoff games in big numbers. I don't know if they're watching them on TV. I'll be anxious to kind of see in the next day or two what the TV numbers looked like for the 2 games last night. At least people are still going to the games and supporting these teams, Sam.
Yeah, and last night, nuts and bolts of it was you saw what Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston are capable of doing, right? Even without Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark in that lineup. Those are 2 players that are part of this foundation that the Fever have built, and part of the reason that, the success has grown year over year. And I think it will continue to grow going into next year, going into, year 3 of Caitlin Clark, and, another year with Sophie Cunningham on the team. So, the trend is definitely up for the Fever. I think that they've got a real shot in this series. I actually don't know what the odds are. I'll try to pull those up, for Thursday night, but, I think all in all, they're 7.5 point dogs. So the book thinks the Dream have this one in the bag. All in all, I think that if you're a Fever fan, if you're a member of the Fever franchise, not to say that you can't be upset with how this season turns out, because I know they came into the season as the 3rd title favorites, 4th title favorites. And obviously you're staring down the barrel of a first round exit here. But, with everything that teams had to endure this year, all of the injuries, not having their best player for, half the season, I think that this is definitely, I think there are a lot of positive takeaways from this Fever team this year. And, from a betting perspective, I'll definitely be trying to catch an edge on them going into next season.
Keep an eye on the Breanna Stewart story with Phoenix in New York in Game 2 of that series tonight. Obviously, with Stewart suffering from the knee injury, a game-time decision for Game 2 there. Golden State at home, their first WNBA playoff game in their first WNBA season. That is still a remarkable story, what that team has been able to accomplish, win or lose. Obviously, they will be big dogs at home tonight against a game, suffice it to say, Minnesota Lynx team. Golden State is getting 10 at home in a playoff game tonight, Sam. Would you take it? Would you be tempted?
I wouldn't. And that Liberty number at 4.5 over Phoenix as we record this tells you Stewie's probably not playing.
We're coming back with odds and ends on this Wednesday edition of SportsWrap. Just about time to say goodbye on this Wednesday edition of the show. Tomorrow's Thursday. That means David Ardsman is here for his usual weekly baseball segment. Who knows? Cal Raleigh might have 57 or 58 home runs by then. Just have to wait and see. What'd you say, Sam?
59. Maybe he'll be at 60.
Big, big, big. A couple of reminders for you all. If you have not checked yet, check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. You name it. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can get the podcast version of this show. If you want to watch us someplace other than your regular broadcast or cable outlet or satellite TV, wherever you watch, you can also watch us over on YouTube. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is there for you. Sports Wrap shorts, clips from the show, sometimes clips not from the show. The subscriber count keeps growing every day. Go and add your name to it. Join the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube family. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. The end of a long drought for Lionel Messi. He scores a goal last night, had an assist as well. Inter Miami beat the Seattle Sounders 3-1 just 2 weeks after losing to them in the league's cup final. I don't really care. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I give a crap. But the reason I bring it up is I was thinking about this as I was preparing the show today. MLS and the NHL are one and the same. I'm getting the sense. And by the way, if you want to look up something interesting, go look this up. I may have referenced this a month or two ago on the show. How leagues and teams actually make their money. And the NHL, like 50% of their revenue is at the gate. 50% of how much teams make is at the gate. Whereas the NFL, it's like 25% or 20% versus what they make in media rights deals. And I don't know what it is for MLS. I've only seen it for the 4 major leagues, which we have to start changing our mindset on what the 4 major leagues are, because there's so many out there now, and the paradigm is shifting. But Sam, I compare the MLS to the NHL in that they are not going to ever be, I think, a huge TV draw in this country, especially with the broadcasts being on Apple TV the way they are. And there is news to get to on media rights that I want to talk about here in a second. But to me, MLS and NHL are the same in that they're based on rabid regional fan bases that are going to go watch the games in person. But I don't think national audiences are tuning in to watch it on TV.
I agree with you, Jason, and I'll take your theory even one step further. I don't think that we are too far from a very NHL-esque type of media deal for Major League Soccer, where they do a deal with one large carrier. Say it's, I actually think they might already do this, like an ESPN, to have a marquee game each week. Right? So you can go to your secondary provider, in this case Apple TV, for all the games, right? But if you want to watch, Sunday night baseball, in this case we'll call it Wednesday night football, right? You can watch that on ESPN, say in, the middle of their summer season. So I don't think that the comparison is at all far off. I think that, it's not quite to the level of baseball where you'll have all of the popularity and kind of coalescence between networks in terms of national broadcasts for big games throughout each and every week. But I do think they could definitely get to the point in the end, like where the NHL was, for instance, say with their Versus deal, right? When all of the games, all the primetime games happened. No. It was all of the games were on Versus, and then you had your primetime games happening on NBC at the time, I believe. I could 100% see that being how this MLS kind of new era ushers in and pans out with regard to the media scale.
I will say this, MLS missed the boat on one thing. You should still have some broadcast presence. And the fact that they're not on ABC, they're not on CBS, they're not on NBC, they're not on Fox. The fact that they completely shut all that out and gave it all to Apple TV, I think was an enormous mistake. And whether they'd admit it or not, I think they know it as well. Quickly from baseball, we've been wondering what's going to happen to the rights deals as everything expires at the end of this year. ESPN losing its deal. Well, it turns out ESPN still, it looks like, is going to have a piece of the Major League Baseball pie with regular season games. NBC Universal, NBC/Peacock, is going to join the fray, it sounds like, according to Rob Manfred. Nothing is signed yet. And Netflix is going to get involved, Sam, vis-a-vis the Home Run Derby, it sounds like, next season. So again, continue to see these streaming partners. We talked about Prime Video yesterday, jumping in with the Masters for the early rounds. And now you're starting to see baseball dip its toe into the water as well. Peacock and potentially some stuff with Netflix.
And again, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show. It feels like, and I may have just said this to you in private, Jason, but it feels like we have gotten to the point where the explosion is so big that we have to get back to one central little point. It feels like everything's going to come back together because it's way too spread out right now. And it costs too much money to watch sports, and it's going to start affecting the sports.
We shall see. That's all I got. I don't have much more time to say more than that. Thanks to you, Sam. Good to have you back. David Ardsma on the show tomorrow. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. We'll see you later.